Thank you. Cool. Excellent. Good evening and welcome to the that's a good start, isn't it? Environment Advisory Group. I'm Councillor Stuart Gawley. I'm the portfolio holder for Environment, Highway and Highways and chairman of the Environment Advisory Group. The members joining me this evening are councillors Karen Culver, Nick Carter and Martha Vickers. We're also expecting Paul Kander, Jeff Mays, Vicky Paul and Joanne Stewart, but I think we may have some apologies coming from some of those folks, unless you can tell me they're on the line anywhere. Paul Kander, good evening, Councillor Kander. It's good. And therefore, we may get apologies from others. I've seen apologies today from Councillor Richard Sumner as well. The following officers are in attendance to advise and support the meeting. We've got John Winstanley, Service Director. We've got Kofi Aduji-Amphi, who's the Service Lead for Climate Change. We've got Daniel Warren, who's the Waste Manager. I believe he's online. We've also got Thomas Radbourne, who's the Clerk for this evening, and Gordon Oliver, who is our Zoom host. We're also expecting presentations this evening from Susan Millington, for Coordinator for Newbury Friends of the Earth. And also Kelvin Hughes, who's the CEO of Newbury Community Resources Centre Limited. So thank you both for joining us this evening. We've also got Councillor Adrian Abbs, who's in attendance this evening as well. So thank you all for joining us, and hopefully welcome to all of those who may watch this back online later on. Just in terms of housekeeping, if we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via a safe emergency exit route, and please follow any instructions given by officers. We've got fire exits to the back and to the left there, and the assembly point is the car park at the rear of the Dolphin pub. If the lockdown alarm sounds, we remain seated and await instructions from officers, and we'll adjourn the meeting until such a safe time as it is safe to proceed. Any questions from anyone on how this evening's meeting will work? No. Good. Excellent. Item 1 is apologies. Do we have any apologies, Thomas?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies received from Councillors Owen Jeffreys, Dennis Bennyworth, Joe Watts and Councillor Richard Somner.
Marvellous. Thank you. And then the point 2 is to review the minutes of the previous EAG, which was held way back in the summer, which feels like an awfully long time ago, on the 22nd of July. Have we all had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions or concerns from the minutes at all? No. Okay, marvellous. In that case, I'm happy to propose from the chair. Do they have a seconder? Councillor Martha Vickers. All those in favour? Marvellous. Thank you. Excellent. I don't think there's anyone against them then in that case. Any against? Just for formality's sake. No, good. Okay, cool. No case. I will sign and date those minutes. Is that those out? Yes, please. Appreciate it. Thank you. The date. Cheers, thank you. Excellent. So item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from around the room?
I think I have to declare that I'm a member of Newbury. Sorry. I'm a member of Newbury Friends of the Earth, but I don't think that's.
I don't think
people are as well.
Yeah, no,
but,
thank you.
I'm sure we all support what Susan's doing anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, excellent. That moves us on to item 4, which is a presentation from Kelvin Hughes and the Community Reuse Project. Over to you. When you speak, if you just use your microphone, and we will be able to hear you here and online. So over to you, and thank you very much.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a bit more info on what is more commonly known as the Community Furniture Project, but which is actually the Newbury Community Resource Centre and has been for nearly 25 years. However, I will explain where the myth comes from. So we are a registered charity, and as well as a company limited by guarantee. And how does this swap? That's it. So essentially, we exist to help people, local people in need, whether that need be financial hardship, living with disabilities, or any other form of need that we may be able to assist with, primarily by providing furniture, goods and services at low cost, but also we provide opportunities for people to develop work and social skills, and also through volunteering. And more pertinent to this meeting, by encouraging environmentally beneficial activities, particularly recycling and reuse, but also, of course, waste minimisation. So just a quick history. So the project actually started back in 1997, was started by Berkshire Women's Aid in order to assist people who were in their hostels moving out into the community and didn't have any furniture. Strangely, it started off in 2 lock-up garages that were supplied by the local authority, and it kind of spread from there. So by 2000, the activity had taken on a bit of life of its own, and it was slightly at variance with the kind of confidential nature of the work of Berkshire Women's Aid. So the actual charity as it exists today, NCRC, was created back then with the same chair as was with Berkshire Women's Aid. And to this day, I think 5 of our founding trustees are still heavily involved with the project nearly 25 years later. So NCRC consists mainly of 3 projects. It started off with a community furniture project. We also run a training community support, and also the Growing Together project just across the border near Headley. Key to all our projects is the fact that we're there to support vulnerable people. There's all kinds of vulnerabilities, and people's vulnerability change throughout life. And a lot of people have been involved with us for the full period, and new people join us weekly. Training and work experience is very key to all the projects that we deliver, and we focus on the process of delivering reuse and looking at all the opportunities it gives to assist people. Before, but even more so during and after COVID, we try to help reduce isolation and build supportive networks. One of the biggest issues you have with people, particularly in areas which are more rural, is that people in this more modern day and age, they lack the sense of community that they may have had some time ago, with families living more separately than they used to do. And therefore, throughout all our projects, there's a kind of a day-to-day rhythm, as you get in many workplaces. Procedures, opportunities for people to develop rules and routines, reducing isolation, and through regular attendance over time, building their own supportive networks, and also greatly assisting with people's mental health by having people they can generally refer to as being a friend or a colleague, and also knowing that, you know, when the project closes at 5 o'clock, there's still people they can talk to if they need to talk to somebody in the evening, and they can remain engaged and build up a community that they're part of. So in terms of the resources, kind of numbers on a few things, we've currently got 51 paid staff, which includes 7 qualified training officers. We've got a very large team of committed volunteers. I think last year, 324 people in total volunteered with our projects. We've got a fleet of 14 vehicles, which may seem odd for a charity that has an environmental bent, but they're used to support our projects, as well as we support a lot of other charities by providing them with transport, whether it be minibuses or moving goods about. We operate from 30,000 square feet of retail and training space. We also have a 4-acre horticultural project that we run, and we have a 6-acre woodland that we manage near shore, where we run other schemes. A few more numbers. So from the environmental side, last year we reused over 68,000 items, had over 128,000 customer visits, 14,000 donations were received. We carried out over 4,000 household collections, 3,000 deliveries, tested and repaired nearly 3,500 electrical items, everything from a whisk to a cooker to a fridge to you name it. We did draw the line at the waterbed, and we reused and recycled 720 tonnes of furniture, appliances and other bulky waste in the course of the year. Through the selling of it, and the calculation for this comes from the Reuse Network, which is the national body that we're affiliated with, we saved people at least £3.75 million in the cost of what it would have been to buy an equivalent item at the lowest price available, you know, through a major retailer, usually Argos. And more pertinent again to this meeting, we saved over 1,300 tonnes of CO2 equivalent, which, if my calculations are roughly right, is the equivalent of taking about 325 cars off the road for a year, something like that. Our volunteers donated nearly 75,000 hours of their time. We donated and refurbished 200 laptops last year. And the thing that's most important to me personally is that we provided over 6,000 sessions for young people and adults with learning disabilities or mental health issues to take an active role in supporting their community. So the community furniture project itself, more specifically, this is our shop. Many of you may have been in. So essentially, we have a retail offer. Sorry, I'll nod. So there's two ways you could do reuse, essentially. You can go for a full commercial operation. You can say to yourself, right, we are going to go fully for the environmental benefit. We're going to reuse the maximum amount, apply a commercial basis, which is what most of my life was spent doing. Or you could take the other option, which is what we do, which is to use the whole process of reuse as a source of learning and support activities, whilst still obviously generating a surplus or albeit more. So if you think about, if you collect a sofa from somebody's house, the person collecting it could involve a volunteer who's getting work experience. You're also creating employment. When it comes back, maybe a sofa's not a good choice after the change in the POPs regulations earlier this year. We're not allowed to do that anymore. But should we say a table, and it comes back and it needs a bit of TLC. That gives the opportunity to train people, to give people experience in doing that. And at the end of it, when it's passed on, which I'll explain later, it can be passed on in various ways, depending on what kind of benefit you want to generate. So our product is sourced from various waste streams, household, which is the majority of it, also through commercial and industrial routes, but the vast majority is household. And we pass on goods through a two-tier price system. So if you come in, all our price tickets have two prices on them. A discounted price for people living on benefits, old age pension, students on full-time employment, as students in full-time study. And also we have our essential household goods scheme, which is being ever more hard pressed. So the essential house goods scheme provides household items to people in proven critical need free of charge. That can be everything from a teaspoon to the whole contents that you need to set up a home. In the last year, we supplied 405 families in West Berkshire free of charge. And due to the cost of living crisis, as Martha will know from other meetings that we've been in, the demand has risen significantly. And in particular now, we're seeing cases where both partners in a household, maybe in full-time employment, are still cannot manage to meet the cost of maybe replacing a fridge, a cooker, a bed, or something else. The vast majority of the referrals we have come from West Berkshire Council's housing team, adult social care team, safeguarding teams, but the vast majority of the links are with local authority staff. Just a few examples here. For example, assisting a victim of domestic violence coming out of a refuge to set up a home. Sadly, a significant number of people we support, going back to the initial parts of the reasons the project was set up in 97, still exists, where we're supporting victims of domestic violence. And again, a lady moving out of a homeless hostel, supported set up a new home, supplying all the required items needed for a young woman moving into a first tenancy from the local authority mother and baby accommodation. And again, assisting a person to relocate is being at risk of violence. We do have quite a few cases where violence within the family and also from external criminal activity, which is affecting the family, are cases we often have to support and deal with. So in terms of more nuts and bolts, we operate 2 warehouses. We have a project in Basingstoke as well, but it's a fraction of the size of what we operate in West Berkshire. We obviously have the donation point at Newtown Road, which works very well for us. The 2 shops providing opportunities. And again, this will be a point I'll keep reiterating. It provides lots of range of opportunities for people to learn and gain experience and qualifications. As I say, the collection delivery process, again, provides volunteering opportunities, work experience, accredited training. And we also provide forklift truck and reach truck training as well. Our commercial partners are varied and wide, and we work with a whole range of local and national organisations. And we handle everything from office furniture, DIY store surplus, stock paint, beauty products, you name it, we normally get off with it. Our biggest relationship by far is with IKEA and John Lewis, where we deal with their what's called orphan stock. So that will be, so say you've got 3 boxes to build the table. They end up with mismatches. So they'll have box 2 and 3, but not box 1. We'll collect them, we'll store them, we'll wait, and then eventually we part them up and off they go. John Lewis, we ran their sofa take back scheme, which sadly has had to stop because of changing regulations that came in January last year regarding the reuse of upholstered furniture. The army is mainly to do with former military accommodation, but that's now been outsourced, but we still get quite a lot there. They're quite good for us because often a home will be catered out for somebody on a posting for 12 months and then it's basically left. So it's a good, reliable source. Training community support. Sorry, we've gone through that. Voluntary sector partners. We work with a whole range of local organisations. This is Laura from the Food Bank. So, for example, our relationship with them is when they need a lot of stuff moving. I mean, Harvest Festival's coming up, so we'll be moving stuff there. And when they need to pre-position lots of food, we do that. Also, we also will assist projects that need to move stuff about, or maybe the minibus or whatever. So we try and make sure that the vehicles in particular we have are maximised use, that they're not parked up whenever we can. Training community support. This basically is the other side of the equation. So these are our workshops. This is where the training, the learning and everything goes on. This is the other side, what the volunteers like to call the dark side in Newbury, which not many people do. But if you pop in, you're interested, if you ask, we're more than happy to show you about. So again, we provide activities for people of all kinds of abilities, volunteering, practitioner day services. We deliver day services for adults with learning disabilities for West Berkshire Council, and we have quite a number of people who come into that, and they also get engaged in accredited training. So the supported volunteering activity focuses on the fact that a person, regardless of their disability, and particularly adults with learning disabilities, can make a positive contribution to what they do. The best people we have by far for building IKEA are young people who are autistic. They have got an amazing skill set when it comes to problem solving, and particularly following those damned little drawings. And it's an excellent activity for young people because it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's predictable. And they will outbuild anybody in this room when it comes to putting IKEA together, I can assure you. Currently, we have 78 adults that we support on a weekly basis. We also work with vulnerable children. We have children placed with us from local schools who are excluded, not only behavioural issues, quite often because of emotional health issues. And again, they engage in a whole range of activities, but the bicycles are their particular interest. As I say, we're an accredited training provider. We're part of LASER, which is part of the Open College Network. And our courses are all based on the concept of LEAP, Learning, Employability and Progression. And it's called the nested qualifications, essentially build up credits from different activities. Because one of the issues we have often with young people is they'll fix an idea in the mind that they want to become a woodworker or an electrician or something. When they actually try it, they suddenly realise, I have no aptitude for this or no interest in it. So everything's based on an initial process of take a chance. So we can let people try anything and everything and let them find what is their choice. Because quite a lot of young people make a decision about what they want their future employment to be, without having actually had a taste of it, and then find out it's not really for them. And so hopefully they will see something else that takes their interest. So over the last year, 65 people successfully completed accredited qualifications with us. And they're delivered through an arrangement that we have with West Berkshire Council's adult community learning team, with whom we have a contract to deliver training for people who are post-19. Furniture repair, of course, is a major part of what we do, and also looking at upcycling, again, provides more working experience. One of the issues we have quite often, and one of the complaints we get from people is, oh, but it could be fixed, it could be reused, but at the same time, one of the main issues with furniture is, as well as being practically reusable, it needs to be desirable, somebody needs to want it. So a lot of the stuff that people often offer is it has no future because nobody wants it. A chipped Formica table may be good on the set of a kitchen sink drama for 5 minutes, but it's not something wants in their home. So that's quite often a challenge. And we do a lot of repair work, but it's largely confined to resurfacing, gluing, fixing, and putting back together. Electrical testing and repair, as I said earlier, we do over 3,500 items a year. Everything is function and safety tested by qualified staff and volunteers in 2 workshops. And we're an approved treatment facility regulated by the Environment Agency. And again, we provide accredited training, which is delivered alongside these opportunities. We were previously an approved authorised treatment facility, and we used to run the electrical reuse for Newtown Road. However, that got to the point where only 15% of the goods were actually reusable. And in the last full year of operation, I think we lost about £24,000 on the operation of it. So now we still take electrical items, but we prefer to collect ourselves from the home or to be delivered direct to us because the weightage rate was so high. Rebike is very popular. We operate, again, 2 workshops that repair and recondition bicycles. Again, we provide training, not only for volunteers, but also to local schools if they want us to go in and do a training session. In addition, we supply bicycles free of charge for children to get to school where there's no school transport or where it's becoming unaffordable. And in the last year, we processed over 2,500 bicycles, of which about, I think, 1,200 were fully reusable, but the vast majority of them are used as parts for the bikes as well. We also work with young offenders, and what we'll do with them is if they stick to their part of the bargain, we'll teach them how to rebuild a bike. And if they maintain their side of the contract, we'll give them the bike at the end. And if they misbehave, they'll have to work a few more weeks before they get it, if at all. Reable is another project we run. Again, this is the reuse of disability equipment, wheelchairs, walking frames, Zimmers, all types of ones, because it's, unfortunately, the NHS changed the way in which it provisions this. So therefore, a lot of stuff that previously may have been repaired in their workshops, they're not repaired anymore. And therefore, the stuff becomes surplus all the time. We also have quite a busy trade with occupational therapists coming in to get us to fix brakes and things, because it's a lot quicker for us to do it than it is to put it through their system, and we can get it back to the person straight away. Examples might also be, particularly at Christmas, Granny may be visiting, but they can't fit the wheelchair in the car. So they loan a wheelchair from us for Christmas, and then we get it back in January. But we do about 800 items a year at the moment on this. Kitchen-wise, another scheme. Basically, we train young people to cook, and more importantly, as importantly, to budget to cook. We cook meals 5 days a week, and we have up to 40 people a day who eat with us. The majority of our food sourced through fair share distribution centres and local supermarkets. We have to buy some surplus, and obviously we grow some of it ourselves. We also operate a community freezer. This was a hangover from COVID. So we've got this rather large freezer where we take in surpluses from supermarkets that need to be frozen. So ready meals and lots of other types of food that come into us. And we make it available to any local charity that supports people with hot meals. So that the Soup Kitchen, 8 Bells, various other charities as well. But also we use it for emergency food backup for people. Our other project is Growing Together. Now, this is just across the border, but the vast majority of people who partake in it are from West Berkshire. So this is the site. It's quite a decent size, 4 acres, and we grow all types of stuff. We have an orchard, a very large fruit cage, we have wildlife education area. As you can see, we have lots of raised beds. And for example, Castle School will have raised beds with us, so they come down and they manage their own bits. And what we do is we provide the heavy lift and the grunt when it's needed to do the bigger bits. So again, so it's essentially therapeutic horticulture, adults with learning disabilities and mental health issues. Again, support for children excluded from school. We also carry out environmental education. And our main income is through grounds maintenance activities, contracts that we take, and growing and selling plants and vegetables. And we also operate a forest school. So as I say, we grow seasonal food and flowers. We grow about 18 to 20,000 plants a year, which we manage to sell over a 2-day period every year. It amazes me how quickly the stuff goes out the door. And it always annoys the furniture project, because those 2 days are by far the biggest income earners we have in the course of a year, by far. We also have a project called Forest First, which is a free toddler group we run, which enables children and parents to engage in learning about the natural world through play, craft and storytelling activities. So we normally run them monthly, and we'll have, for example, story walks where we've got a big site. So we'll get a children's book where we can illustrate the story, and the children walk around the site, and we set up the different little scenes, or they adopt the persona of characters in the book as they go around. The main aim of that is to roll them in mud and send them home smelly. We have a renewal project. This is forest school activities. It's mainly based at a 6-acre wood on the River Lambourne, which is just down from Shaw House. You may see a fence there where you cross with lots of stay out signs on it. But essentially, we operate that wood. It's owned by a local family. And essentially what we do there is provide children with education in the importance of biodiversity and wildlife and using outdoor play and learning. And it involves the children habitat building, or I used to call it den building as a kid, river dipping and identification of wildlife, as well as learning in the longer term about environmental stewardship. Most of the children who engage in that are either primary or pre-primary school kids. And in order to fund part of it, we undertake grounds maintenance. So we're responsible for all the grounds maintenance at New Greenham Park. We look after the park. We also have a number of smaller sites we look after. And again, it delivers volunteer and training opportunities for people to do accredited training with us, including landscaping, site maintenance, arboriculture. There's quite a lot of local young people now who've gone on to places to do that. And running out of time, but immediate requests, the phone continually rings and we never know what we're going to be asked to do next. So moving on, pandemic. The pandemic, I've never worked so much in my life. We work in 7 days a week at one point for 4 months. So essentially, we had to massively scale up a lot of what we were doing, particularly with regards to food supply and direct support for vulnerable people. Increasing the food supply, so we went from just feeding our guys to at one point, we were feeding 460 families a week and a further 2,000 people. We were supplying 5 schools and also a lot of the smaller food distribution projects that were set up in town. We were supplying them, again, using our vehicles, and we had to set up a cold chain for it. At the same time, we supported the council in moving homeless people into hostels, temporary accommodation. Sadly, domestic violence didn't stop just because of the pandemic, and we had to continue support. Also supporting elderly people with mental health issues. So a lot of our volunteers spent a lot of time standing in gardens, talking to people 20 feet away through an open window, delivering jigsaw puzzles and just having a chat. We did a lot of that. And our EHGS continued uninterrupted. Digital exclusion, again, during COVID, it was busier, but we supplied 400 refurbished laptops to schools in West Berkshire in partnership with Green Machine Computers, which was funded by the Greenham Trust. And since then, we've continued to supply. We've supplied 200 to local families and Ukrainian refugees. I won't go through all the detail of this, but we've also been supporting victims of the Afghan conflict, people of the Ukrainian conflict, and we're currently also still supporting asylum seekers in the district. Over the last winter, we coordinated the winter homeless provision. So this was for people who were categorised as non-priority. So between December and April, we supported a total of 37 people with over 1,300 bed nights. It was a last minute kind of rush to sort out a problem. We did it, we delivered it, but of all the projects we run, that was one we were least happy with because we think that's the thing that developed the least amount of sustainable long-term benefit. And then we have our annual activities which will be coming soon. So we'll be launching our toy appeal next month, which our toy appeals last year supported 1,500 children with new toys. We were very, very well supported by local companies. And the main tagline is, instead of having the nonsense of having Secret Santa, why not just give something to a child instead? Otherwise, all those novelty socks will still be in the drawer where you put them and never wear. And all work and no play, we have a social aspect to our projects as well. So we run 2 football teams. We're part of the Social Inclusion League, which we won Division 1 last year. So that involves people with learning disabilities who would not ordinarily get involved in such activities. So we play matches monthly during the season. They're either in Oxford or Milton Keynes. So it's a traditional team bus up there. And we also run a range of evening activities. So the key thing with a lot of the people that we work with who are otherwise excluded from society is to give them an active role where they can contribute to society, but also have some social benefit from it. So essentially, we think that we provide many things for many people, but at the core of it is the access to items that we can reuse so that people can benefit materially, but also more important, as important, is that they can benefit socially, emotionally, by becoming part of their community and contributing rather than being sometimes looked at as a drain. As we point out to a lot of young people, that person who you see maybe as a cost to you isn't that young person who may be severely disabled, is providing some pretty positive benefits in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. I must admit, I never appreciated quite how broad the services are that your kind of program of works covers, really. I must admit, I think obviously the community furniture project is probably the most visible one that certainly that you see in various different places, whether it's at Newtown Road or obviously at the other sites around West Parks. But I had no idea quite the depth of what you folks do. So thank you for that. It's clearly a very valuable community service and a big part of the community. So really, thank you very much for showing us and sharing all of that this evening. It's much appreciated. Questions? Councillor Vickers.
Kelvin, yes, it's a wonderful organisation and you seem to have expanded and grown over the years. I was going to ask whether you had any further plans for the future, but I can't think of anything more that you could do because you're really, you seem to have sort of taken up all the sort of branches of what you could do. I was wondering where your funds come from, and you're obviously being paid for some services. So,
Well, we generate 82% of the costs of running the charity ourselves. So this year it's going to cost us, I think, just a touch over 2 million to run it. So obviously we have the reuse, we have the other services that we deliver. So that's where the majority of it comes from. And the balance of the 18%, a large part of that is to do with support we get from Green and Common Trust to cover the cost of the site in Newbury and also the site down at Cottesmore. So the vast majority of it comes in. We have a policy that we will not engage in any project unless we know that within 2 years we can make it sustainable through our own efforts and not have to rely on external funding. So if it doesn't meet that benchmark at the beginning, we don't engage in it.
Thank you very much. Do you think, I mean, most people seem to know that you are what you are, but all your different projects, I mean, do you think there's more that could be done to sort of publicise what you do? Could we help in any way?
Well, yeah, we can always push things more. I think one of the things sometimes is for people to understand that we get a lot of criticism because, oh, I offered somebody something 15 years ago and they refused it. And we always give reason why we can't make use of something. And that sometimes is the most difficult thing because last year, I think we spent £32,000 on waste disposal costs. That was disposing of things that we didn't want that we somehow ended up with, whether they be left outside the site or something else. And it's getting an appreciation of, of the side of it. And as I say, the key bit as well is, I'll come to a positive in a minute, but the key bit is the point about, the comment that annoys me more than anything else when people say, oh, the poor are getting fussy. And we say, well, no, the point is it's not clean or it's not suitable. Or if you don't want it, why do you assume somebody else has to have it? That's one difficulty. And it's what sets my volunteers off in a rage. In terms of the positivity, we can just keep focusing on what's going there. If you can buy something that's reusable, buy reusable. If with bicycles, I mean, I've got 4 kids, and if I bought them a new bike every time they needed the bike, I'd be bankrupt many years ago. And we've now got families who've been with us. We've been going 25 years nearly, so we've got multi-generational things. So we've got families who the tradition is you get your bike from the bike project, you take back the one that no longer fits you, and you get the next one. And that's what I think is what we want, is for people to focus more on the reusable aspect of it, both from the social benefits it generates, but obviously clearly the environmental benefits. If you think about how much carbon is tied up in the production of new items. And it's unfortunate, of course, at the moment, as Coffee will know, the POPs regulations that came in, which has massively reduced the amount we can do with we used to reupholster some furniture. We can't do that anymore. We're not allowed to. So that's a negative. But essentially, the best thing the community can do is just use us more. If you use us more, we'll do more. If we can generate more income, we'll spend more income on social projects. So more of the same, essentially, is what we need to do.
Thank you. Councillor Culver.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for your presentation. Really, really interesting. I'm aware of some of what you do, but not all of it. It probably would have been easier if you'd said what you don't do, listening rather than what you do actually do. Just building on what Councillor Vickers was saying, I think one of the things we could do regarding publicity is to push more stuff out on Facebook. So in my ward, I've got 6 Facebook pages, and councillors would have heard me banging on about this in various forums. But if we could promote regularly the kind of stuff that you're looking for, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that would see those messages that probably are not even aware that you exist and will be taking stuff down the dump and just dumping it. A couple of specific things about the laptops. I know a lot of people tend to, laptops only have a certain amount of life and then they end up under the bed because no one can be bothered to take them somewhere where they can get them wiped.
Yeah.
Do you actually wipe them as well as taking them away?
The way we deal with it.
Yeah.
Sorry, cut across.
Yeah, that's right.
What we do is we work with a company called Green Machine Computers, who are based at Whitenditch, but we're working with them at the moment to set up a charity called the Tech Hub, because we're not really techie people, but we're setting up this other thing to do it now. Green Machine Computers, a commercial venture, but they're ISO 14000, they're ISO 9000, so they've got all the software and everything to certify those wipes. So we do not do that. We hand it to them, and they give us a certificate to confirm that it's been completely wiped. And then we have a minimum spec of what we can reuse. If we can't reuse it, we'll recycle it. But essentially, it's going to be able to do Windows 10. And then there's various other bits that I don't understand that have got letters after the name. But if it meets that criteria, then we'll reuse it. So that people know that when they get it, it's something that's going to be sorted. And we normally load it up with Office Libre, the free version of it. Although we just got agreement from Microsoft for us to become an educational vendor, so we'll be able to supply to load the software at a massively reduced cost.
Great. Because I was at a community cafe last week where there was a lady who's been made redundant and her laptop doesn't work anymore and she's trying to redo her CV on her mobile phone. So if a laptop was available to her, a second-hand laptop that she could do a basic Word document on, that would be great. So if we can promote that, I think that would be great, because I bet lots of people have got 2 or 3 old laptops stuck under the bed and they don't know what to do with them because it's too much of a pain to sort them out. Very quickly, Chairman, one last question. Did you mention, have you got a library of things where people can borrow tools?
No, we haven't. And the reason we haven't done that is because talking to our insurers, we couldn't get them to agree. We had a bit of trouble with our insurers because obviously we have to insure for liabilities. And that was part of the problem with it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman, for letting me. Very small. I was joking earlier. IT is my life, so if I can help in some way, by all means, contact me. However, it was something Councillor Culver just said about new laptops for someone who's unemployed. Funnily enough, I've had a family relative just go through that, and they were issued a brand new Chromebook from the job centre.
Yeah.
So I think there is those possibilities as well, just as it's going and being broadcast.
Yeah.
As much as great work you do.
No.
It's only a Chromebook. It's not Windows, but hey, whatever.
I think the point is, if the government's supposed to do something, they should be doing that first before we get involved. We're supposed to be picking up the pieces, not
You're the
doing it for
backup
them.
to the backup.
Yes.
Thank you.
A quick one from me. Are you finding that quality of product is making things hard to reuse?
No, because we've got a very good team of volunteers who are very polite at saying no. So essentially, the way we set it up, because we get so many calls, and then the people say to us, "Oh, I can't get through to you," but we take hundreds of calls. So essentially, what we ask the people to do is to load up a photo to the website, and we can have a look at it, and we can see whether we can accept it or not. But I think a lot of people now have kind of got fairly used to what is and isn't acceptable. You'll always have people who might object, but as much as we can, we do it. And as I say, our volunteers do refurbish an awful lot of furniture in the course of a year, a lot of furniture.
Excellent, thank you. And you're not seeing obviously, I kind of see things like furniture being a bit more disposable than perhaps they used to be.
Yeah, I think the thing is that if it's lasted so long, it'll come out. You get difficulties. Obviously, we work a lot with IKEA, and I'm not in any way going to denigrate IKEA. But they've got a system now where you can take back your old IKEA item to them and they'll give you a note against it. But I'd love to see somebody try and take, a 3-door wardrobe apart and take it back, and you have to rebuild it when you get it back to IKEA. So I would be amazed to see somebody achieve that. But the majority, the key things is good furniture has always been good furniture. If it's lasted 50 years, it'll last another 50 years. If it's lasted 5 minutes, maybe not, but yeah, most of it's pretty resilient.
Cool. Marvellous, thank you. Any more questions from online at all? Anyone? No? Cool. Marvellous. Oh, go for it.
I mean, you mentioned the forest school. I know a lot of children are doing this now. And even in some of our town centre schools, they've got little forests. But so your forest school is basically for those schools that don't have access to a forest. So
Yeah,
there's
I
a bit
mean-
of travel involved, I
Well,
imagine.
the
getting
main, I mean,
children.
like, the main one that uses is Victoria Park Nursery. They're the main people users, yeah. Yeah.
So they're coming some distance, aren't they, to actually sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we have it at Cottesmore, but the reason we set them one up in Newbury was to get as close as we could. But
Mm.
again, you know, you can't move the woodland, so we have to move the kids.
The Cottesmore's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further questions from in the room? No? Perfect. In that case, thank you very much for your presentation. And again, I think I never quite appreciated the broad spectrum of activities that you're involved in. So it's really great to hear and thank you very much. Cool. Moving on to item 5, which is over to Susan Millington, Newbury Friends of the Earth, to talk us through the Newbury Nature Corridor and the Lockdown Woods project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to tell you about this project. So, yes, so can you hear me okay? So Newbury Friends of the Earth has 2 practical projects ongoing at the moment, as well as our lobbying work. And so we started off with Lockdown Woods, and then that evolved into the Nature Corridor. So let me tell you the reasons why we wanted to do both of them, really. Yes, next slide, thanks. Can you go back? So, I mean, we all know that nature is threatened all around the world, and particularly in this country, the biodiversity is declining and so on. So, it's all very well having wonderful nature reserves, as we do, but the key thing is to link them up so that wildlife can move between them and have an expanded area to live and to eat and to breed. And in a lovely town like this, where a lot of people have gardens, then why not use the habitats that we've got within our towns to link up any more wilder areas and farmland and so on. And I think we've come into this at the right time, because there is a lot more awareness now about the need to look after nature and to link up different areas. So there's a lot of support for the project. So it was, the Nature Corridor was based on our Lockdown Woods project, which, as the name implies, started in lockdown, where we wanted to encourage children and families to grow little trees that they found in their gardens and to plant them out in memorial woods to the losses of the pandemic. So we've got 5 little lockdown woods around the district now, varying sizes, and we've planted out over 2,000 native broadleaf species trees, and we've got 2 of the little woodlands are actually purely made up of homegrown trees that people have looked after and have come and planted out with us. So the idea is to get children keen, looking after their little tree and then planting it out, and then getting interested in looking after trees and to know that they can grow things themselves that will soon turn into a huge tree. And we are continuing to look after them, mulching, watering, weeding, and so on. Yes, one of them is on District Council land, so Goldwell Park. One's Hungerford Town and Manor, 2 are Newbury Town Council, and one's private land. So that was quite a logistic exercise, learning the different requirements of those different landowners. Okay, next, please. So the nature corridor is linking the Goldwell Park with a much smaller wood in Barn Crescent, which I don't know if you know of, because it's a community orchard. So the community orchard group have an orchard there, and it's 2.5 miles by foot from one to the other through some quite mature housing estates, private and sovereign. And it goes, there's 2 schools in the district, in the area. So the schools are marked in red. We've got St Bart's, the top one, and then John Rankin School below it. And there's a few district council sites, and there's 10 or 11 town council sites there, as well as natural corridors. But you've got the railway and the canal cutting across both of them. So it's there's a lot of potential there. And we tell people we want to build up so that in a few years' time, a frog can choose to hop its way all the way down via all the little ponds that have appeared in people's gardens and in the schools and so on, or a hedgehog might snuffle its way up and down, because they have a large area that they can cover in a night, you know, to up to 2 kilometers. So we want to get some hedgehog highways set up, because everybody loves hedgehogs. So next slide, please. So Barn Crescent Lockdown Wood is off Elizabeth Avenue at the top of Wash Common. So there's we planted about 70 trees there in lockdown, which was interesting. Only 2 people allowed in the field at any one time. And that's grown really, really well. Some of the trees are 15 foot high now. That's town council land. Okay, next. Goldwell Park. Well, you've probably, most of you seen that. Again, planted under restrictions. So we had 3 different groups of bobbles planting that, and it was opened by the mayor, and you may have seen it now. It's growing very well. So that's a mixture of trees that were donated to us by the lockdown by Woodland Trust, and trees that the district council very kindly planted, much larger saplings. So that's looking pretty good there. We planted bulbs and we planted snowdrops. Well, we actually moved snowdrops from the top of the hill down to the bottom. So reuse, recycling. Next slide, please. So yes, so we're involving. We want to inspire and be a catalyst for children and families to develop a love of wildlife and to understand that they can do something, even if it's just something quite small in their back garden, maybe a little pot of wildflower seeds or something. And if they see bees and butterflies on it, they'll realize, oh yeah, you know, I can do something to make the world a better place, you know, to make my garden better. And that hopefully is inspiring the ecologists, wildlife engineers, wildlife presenters of the future. So we're working with school children very much, working with 2 scout troops now, and your good selves and the town council, and getting local residents involved. In Sunday week, we're planting spring wild species of bulbs in Middle Close, at the top of Valley Road. And we've been very fortunate in the funding that we've got from Greenham Trust, from Sovereign, Veolia, Southern Co-op, and from the town council via Greenham Trust. So we're in the early stages of this project. It's only been going just over a year. And it's a multi-year project, of course, and hopefully we'll get more and more people involved as people get to know about it. Next slide. Okay, so there's many ways we can help wildlife, as we all sort of know and can list them. People have got busy lives and so many different priorities on them that perhaps making a little wildlife area in their garden doesn't even make it onto the list. So if we can help by giving information, by giving wildflower seeds as well, and maybe some practical help, then that can make the difference. Okay, next slide. Okay, so a little area at the bottom of Valley Road, opposite Bartlemy Road, which you may know of. That's about what, a third of an acre or something. It's that actually belongs to you, the district council, and we've had conversations with Matt Hart about doing something there, and we'd like to do a nature trail there for children. But of course, it'll all be in consultation with the local people. We'll do leafleting and then maybe set up a meeting to make sure that's what the local people want. There's nothing worse than imposing something on people who then moan that the grass is far too long, and then you just antagonize people rather than helping people to understand what you're doing and to take them along with you and ideally get them involved. So, we're not rushing into things because we want to involve local people. This bulb planting that we're doing the week after next, we've got a 2-page flyer which we're going to deliver to people around Middle Close so that they're informed and hopefully can come along. Next slide. So there's 10 or so town council plots of land, including 3 allotment sites, just happen to be in that area, and the town council has been very, very helpful through the Green Spaces group. So yeah, that's great. Next. So they've already, the town council have already started managing the grass sensitively, and this year they didn't cut a couple of little areas in Middle Close because there was lady's smock growing there, and they left it until it had flowered. Yeah, so we hope to get a wildlife hedge along that fence line next winter. But again, we want to take people with us with all that. Okay, next. John Rankin Infants and Primary School. We're doing a lot of work. Again, was at the start of a project with them. They had 2 very small derelict ponds, and they had funding to restore the ponds, which has now been done, but they need further help in the ongoing planting plans and so on. So we're involved with them, and we're working with Rachel Hammond, of Edge Landscaping, who came to address you a few months ago. She's helping with the technical advice on that. Next slide. Yeah, that's the other pond. So a nice little ecological lesson of ponds, if left, turn into woodland pretty quickly. Okay, next, please. Yes, St. Bart's. I've got a nature garden, which is an acre or so, and those pupils are not allowed in there at the moment because it's considered dangerous. There's a lot of very slippery, decaying decking. So again, we're working with them to restore that. But again, that's going to be several years before that's going. We're also planting some trees in the grounds there this winter with another community project, the Siwa Group. Okay, next. Oh, and we've got maps. We've got maps of the area in the school corridors for people, to inspire the pupils to say, oh yes, well, I'm doing something in my garden, and then the teacher can put a pin in there, and then everybody can see. So hopefully that will build up some competitive element. And hopefully in a few years there'll be a sea of pins. It's a nice low-tech way of doing things. I think we'll move on online as well at some point. Next, please. Yep. Okay. Next, please. Yeah, we're planting some trees again with the town council in Fifth Road this winter. And the next, St George's Avenue. We're going to seed some wildflower strips, about 4 lots of 4 by 10 meters on the side of the banks there. Next spring again with the town council, and consult with the local people about what else they would like to be done there, if anything. Okay. Yeah, so we are aiming to provide information, help, supplies, and so on to households. And we're working with the two scout groups now for them to create a survey and to take round to households and to ask and just find out what's going on in their little areas, and to offer wildflower seeds and so on. So that's really useful for the scouts in developing a lot of their expertise and confidence of talking to people and knowledge about wildlife. Okay, next. Yeah, so I think I've gone through all that. We are collaborating with a lot of other local groups, which is great, and helping each other. Next, please. Oh yes, I said that. It's on Sunday, not Saturday. It's on Sunday week. Okay, next. So we just happened to do it there because there's 2 lockdown woods, which are 2.5 miles apart, and you know, optimum sort of landscape in between. But why not expand it to the whole of Newbury, to the whole of the district? We are actually acting as a bit of a catalyst, because there's already another group that's thinking, oh, why don't we have another one in the east of Newbury going out towards Greenham Common, and there's another one out in west of Hungerford. Little groups are thinking, oh yeah, let's do that. So and that's great, you know, that we're catalyzing other people to do it, because it's not, you know, it's not rocket science, and but it's nice to be able to help people in their busy lives to actually help wildlife. Okay, next. Yeah, so that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Susan. And again, a smashing initiative, and really great to see. And you actually beat me to one of my questions, which was going to be around the expansion and continuing that corridor. And I'll bring Councillor Abbs in a second, but just quickly on that topic, have you thought about, or are you engaging with kind of some of the parish councils that are right on that kind of urban periphery? That's a word, I think I'm making that up. You know, where they are kind of semi-rural, so I'm thinking of ones kind of to the north of Newbury. I know of things like Shorecombe Donington, Cold Ash, and Speen, where they've got pockets of land right that border that kind of urban area. Have you had any thoughts about liaising with those over what land they could help provide for kind of this kind of BNG type activity?
Yes, well, this is quite early stages, really. So we're talking to people, and I talked to the parish group a couple of weeks ago. So people are getting more aware of it. I'm going to be talking to the Greenham parish councillors very shortly as well. So yeah, it'll spread organically, I think, as people get to know about it and think, oh yeah, we can do that.
Good. I know that parish councils tend to have little pockets of land just stashed in places that probably don't have the skill, or some do, or it doesn't have the skill or the time or whatever to make the most of. And I think certainly a couple that I know of. Cool, thank you for that. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chairman. It was just a quick, you mentioned St. Bart's, and basically the kids can't use an area at the moment because it's certainly a couple, that's in my ward, by the way, so very interested. So was a lot of other stuff you put up there, so I'm quite proud, Washcombe. Leading the way. But right now, I think someone else can correct me on this. I think it's the end of November, the members' bid closes November anyway, so we're not quite there yet. You've probably got October to do it. That's where any member can say, right, I like that idea. As long as it's a capital expenditure, you could ask your councillor to help you with a bid up to £5,000 per councillor. There happens to be 3 in Wash Common. That's usually quite a lot in terms of what you're trying to achieve. David Marsh is another one of the councillors in that ward and is always a member of the Green Party. So he would be pretty keen, I'm sure, to get involved. Yeah. I'm waiting for Caroline to nod. Thank you very much, Caroline. So I've just put it in there. Contact Patrick, contact David, myself or Patrick urgently. Let's see if one or all of us, what it really requires is someone else to deliver it. We can put the bid in. We don't guarantee the win, but we can put the bid in, but somebody else has to deliver it. It needs to be match funded usually as well. And it needs to be some kind of capital expenditure. So I need a new bridge for that stream there or something of that nature. Yeah, just yes. Something that might help you in what you're trying.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm already talking with David about that. But yes, I'll certainly.
Excellent. Well, you can talk to me as well if you wish. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Thanks, Susan. Obviously, I'm aware of your projects. I think the nature corridor is a great idea, actually, and particularly that you've involved the local schools. And I know it's great to see the garden in St. Bart's rejuvenated, because I can remember going there some while ago and it's got quite dilapidated. So it's great that I think there was a teacher there that was quite keen, and then when he went, it just didn't. So that's great. So it's really good to be involving the schools. And of course, that's the way you get the message out to people, isn't it? Because I mean, the town council's projects, and Susan's mentioned the different projects around the town. And obviously the town council's got the resources to do things with its pockets of land, the orchards and various plantings and things. But getting the community involved is a big problem. Even when you go and leaflet, you start something off and you hope they'll get involved and you hope they'll come and help with the orchards and all that sort of thing. Do you think you might have more success there? I mean, you had quite a lot of people joining your walk. I know at the beginning. I mean, do you see your regular little trails and nature walks or something going to help people engaged or something?
Well, that's the idea, because we need to inspire people to actually do something themselves. That's why we can start really quite small with something that's very easy to do. So yeah, we're having we're having walks and other activities, as you say, to try and involve people. We've had a couple of bat walks already, and yeah, there will be other things. Yeah, we got over 70 people on our first walk in May from Barn Crescent to Goldwell Park. Yeah, who knows? Time will tell, but by getting in through schools and scouts. I'm hoping that that will then get more families involved. Yeah, open to any more ideas that any of you have from your experience there.
Do you think little notices along the way to remind people this is a nature corridor? Maybe that could be part of the bid, you know, something that actually reminds people that this is a little corridor and the things that could be happening around about. I don't know.
Yes, maybe in a couple of years or
Yeah.
so, when there is something to see, you know, when we've got some bulbs going in bloom up Valley Road, and you can see some bat boxes around and so on. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Culver.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Susan, for your presentation. Yeah, I was going to mention about the members' community bids as well. In East Ilsley and Frilsham, we got some money for small orchards, about 20 trees in each place. I think we planted them about 4 years ago, and we've had a massive windfall of apples this year. So if I know that not every member applies for the community bid funding, so if anyone's short of ideas, it was a relatively cheap project. We got 20 people that came along to help plant in East Ilsley. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance. It looks fabulous, and there's tons and tons of apples, which is really exciting. So, so yeah, I welcome what you've done with the woods and the orchards and so on. We did present a public petition about hedgehog highways a while ago, I think about a year ago, and the council rejected it, unfortunately. And the petition said, let's try to encourage new developers to have hedgehog highways in new developments. And all kinds of reasons were given for why we shouldn't do this, because the developers wouldn't like it, people would fill in the holes, people's dogs and cats would attack the hedgehogs, and all kinds of ridiculous excuses like that. I think it is something that the council should consider looking at again. There are some really good developers out there, some less so. But I know from, I think, Donington Heights, when I went up there, they had all these boards about how they were doing stuff for the environment and all of that kind of thing. So I think we could work with the more environmentally designed, inspired developers on that kind of thing. So yeah, I would urge the council to look at the hedgehog highways again. And then this kind of project will be great because, as we know, we've got the local nature recovery strategy and development plan that are being led at the moment by Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. And at some point, they will be putting a map together. So this is exactly the kind of thing we can put on there. And I know that some people are already registering their interest and stuff that they're doing locally. So I don't know, Susan, if you're aware of the sort of practicalities of getting onto that website and submitting your information, because you'll probably find a load of other landowners doing stuff that you might be able to connect up with. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I gave a talk to the one of the workshops for the nature recovery strategy. So yes, I'm in touch with Rosie Street and the folks there.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you very much. Any other questions from around the room?
Are you familiar with the Green Common Trust project to supply trees?
Yes.
Because we distribute them, so but I can't remember
yes.
supplying any to you.
Yes, yeah, we have some in Goldwell Park if you'd like to come and see them. Yes.
No, the Green Trust is running a project to supply 25,000 trees over the next few years. And are growing together project actually doing the distribution. So you were talking about a hedge there. That's the kind of thing we can supply the trees and the hedging for.
Yes,
So-
yes. Hopefully you will this winter and next winter.
Yeah.
And we already did have some from you last year
Okay.
to expand the area in Goldwell Park.
I think
so
we've still got
thank
the 20,000 to go. So
you.
find some more.
Wow, really.
Well,
Plenty of opportunity then for,
Yeah, it is.
for more.
Yes, there's plenty of opportunity, but not necessarily that much land. I mean, when I started the Lockdown Wood project, I was hoping that we'd have one parcel of land that could become a wood. But we've had to have 5 little areas. So yeah, so if the council comes across a nice little bit of land, then I'm sure we can plant some more.
I think the other thing as well, if you talk to SNG, because we're doing their fly tipping collection, and there was lots of pieces of land they had as well that are kind of odd bits that when the transfer went from the council to SNG, there was lots of little bits of land that ended up orphaned. So it might be worth talking to them. And I know, you know, planting trees on it would reduce the amount of opportunities to fly tip on it.
Okay, well, I'm in communication with SNG and they've given us some funding for this project because there's a lot of sovereign properties in the area of the nature corridor. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Excuse me. Any questions online? No. Cool. Any more from in the room? Councillor Carter.
I mean, it's just only a quick comment on the Hedgehog Highway issue. It was the fact that I think when it was discussed possibly last year, that the issue apparently was a technical one that that planning policy provides provision to protect every protected species. And I think it was the fact that it was particularly homing in on one, that the petition itself that was very prescriptive in what it asked for was not approved. So I don't think it's true to say that West Berkshire Council were anti for any other reason other than technicality, or the analysis of planning legislation is my understanding.
Thank you. Councillor Culver.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we need to not find excuses not to do these things, though, because nature is not going to wait for bureaucrats to decide how petitions ought to be worded. I suspect that we would get a more sympathetic hearing if we were to run the same petition past the new planning policy officer. So I think that's probably something that we could do. Thank you.
Happy to take it away and revisit it, Kofi. That's added to the action. Thank you. Thank you.
And I went to a rather interesting presentation this morning about the sort of like rejuvenation or sort of improvement of the canal corridor, the canal throughout the district. Actually, it's sort of a special project being funded by Greenham Trust and all the other stakeholders connected with the canal. And they were talking about natural corridors and improving the way they improved the canal and how it should be done. And obviously that is a natural corridor that goes an awfully long way. And you can think of sections where maybe it's a bit barren, maybe, which probably wasn't where they were coming from, but from the point of view of nature, might be where you'd be coming from. Say, when it get to the centre of town, do you suddenly have some barren areas that maybe if you're going to have a corridor, you need to do something. But yeah, it was a really interesting presentation and lots of wonderful ideas about how to make the canal more accessible, as well as, for active travel, as well as a more pleasant place and the nature part of it as well.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments from around the room? No? Online? No? Marvellous. In that case, thank you ever so much for your presentation again this evening, Susan. And again, I think another fantastic initiative. And what's really good is I now know where to bring the thousands of saplings that I've got at home that my boys we've grown over the years. And this year has been, I don't quite know what's gone on this year, I'm not going to lie. I've seen little oak saplings pop up all over my garden and I've got no idea where they've come from. Either they've planted them or another animal has dropped them off. And I've also got 5 fir trees that have appeared in the guttering. So it's a bit of a wild house at the moment. And it's only a tiny garden. So if I do not overestimate the number of saplings that I've got. So I will be in contact to work out where we can put them with you. Yeah, it's not many more I'm sure will follow this year as well. So thank you. Yeah, tell me about it. Cool, excellent. So thank you. That takes us on to item number 6, which is the draft waste strategy, draft waste management strategy and the public consultation. So I will hand over to Daniel Warren, who is online to talk us through where we are at the moment. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Stuart. And thank you to Calvin and Susan as well for some great presentations. And so we really appreciate Calvin and the team at the Community Furniture Project, what you do for our reuse offering, as a waste team. That's wonderful. Do I need to share the presentation or is...
Yeah. I think you can. Yeah, I think we've just upgraded you to a co-host, so you should be okay.
Okay. Great. You can see that okay, I hope.
All
Yeah,
good.
wonderful, great. Yeah, so we launched our consultation on our draft waste management strategy last week. So I wanted to I think it was last November, last time we were here at EAG talking about the draft waste strategy. So it's good to be back to talk about it again. Wanted to start off with a bit of background first. So we're proposing a new waste strategy to replace the last strategy, which actually started or was adopted in 2002 and expired in 2022. And that took us from a recycling rate of 11% to where we are now at 54.
Daniel, just quickly, sorry to interrupt you. You've just disappeared off the presentation mode into the slideshow and it's a bit small on the screen. Are you able to pop back to?
Yeah, sorry. Stop.
Would you rather we share, Daniel? Might be a bit easier.
I mean, you can. I can put it back to my screen and.
All right, cool.
Is that there now?
Have a version. I'm not sure whose it is anymore, but.
So you're on the background screen, yeah? You can see it in full view. Wonderful. So we're now at 54 percent recycling rate. A couple of other factors that we're bearing in mind. Upcoming government legislation such as simpler recycling, which will see us increasing the amount of waste we collect as recycling from households, and the deposit return scheme, which we'll see or open up an opportunity for householders to dispose of drink beverage cartons through deposit return schemes rather than through us. So that might change how we collect things going forward. So also a bit of stats about the current waste composition at the moment to provide a bit of background as to our thinking with the draft strategy. So the image you got on the right hand side is the last composition analysis we did of the black bins. So that was undertaken in August 2023. And that showed us that 42% of the black bin waste could be recycled within our curbside scheme. 22% of that was food waste, which we collect weekly now from residents and have done for almost 2 years now. And the other 20% was recyclable cardboard, textiles, etc. We do provide collections for the curbside. So there's quite a bit within the black bins that we think could be recycled at the curbside. And we're also, for 22-23, we were the 26th highest producer of household waste per person in the country, at 427 kilograms per person. So that's quite a. We want to be the highest. We want to be the top at some things, but we don't want to be the top in terms of how much waste we're producing. So I think there's room for improvement there as well. Right. So we've developed a couple of priorities and themes within the strategy. The main priorities are to drive down general waste and increase recycling, improving the street scene and leading the way. So looking at increasing our recycling rate to 60%, halving the residual waste that we collect and produce within a district, reducing our carbon emissions, and continuing to make West Berkshire a great place to live by minimising litter and detritus and trying to set an example for residents and businesses to minimise their waste as well. So a couple of selected actions from within the strategy. There's a few in there. There's a couple we pick out. One of them is exploring changes to the collection frequency of waste collections. It's something that a few other authorities are doing, and they're doing well. So Bracknell, for example, have increased their recycling rate by 11% since they went free weekly a couple of years ago. And a couple of other authorities we've spoken to, Stratford upon Avon, they've reduced their waste production. They've reduced the amount of waste they're producing per person by about 100 kilograms a year. So we think we can follow on from the examples that they've set. We're also looking at reviewing the types of receptacles we provide to residents for their recycling collections. Looking to expand the different types of recycling or waste we can accept as recycling from households. as well as strengthening our commitment to tackle littering and fly tipping. And yeah, continuing to deliver and to expand upon our waste education programs we do at schools and scout groups and beavers across the district. So that's a quick snapshot of what's in the strategy. I just wanted to go over a quick overview of some improvements we've made recently since 2021. We've introduced collection points for plastic pots, tubs and trays at our household waste recycling centres and a couple of our mini recycling centres across the district. We introduced our weekly food waste collections in October 2022, where we're currently collecting about 80 tonnes a week from households. But say there's still, from the black bin composition, there's still a lot of food waste out there that we could be collecting. And we could be recycling and turning into soil conditioner. The same year, we also started our community repaint offering at our household waste recycling centres. I think we've collected and redistributed about 4,000 litres of paint. That's free of charge for anybody who wants to use, as well as opening up a couple of new mini recycling centres to give people the opportunity to recycle small electrical items, cartons. And more recently, a couple of weeks ago, we started our household battery collections from curbsides along with the black bins. It's been really popular. I think we reckon we've probably collected about a tonne of batteries already, which is pretty decent. And we also opened up our coffee pods recycling points at our household waste recycling centres a few months ago. So jumping back to the consultation that opened up last week. We've had 2,200 responses already, which is really good. So we'd encourage everybody to take part. You can do it online. You can also request some hard copies and collect them from our council offices at Market Street. We're also holding some drop-in sessions across the district, some at libraries. We had our first one at Fatcham this morning, which is really good. Had some really good feedback and some good conversations with members of the public there. So we hope to publish the results in December before we finalise the strategy early next year. So that was it for me. I hope that all made sense to everybody, and happy to take some questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Carter.
Hi there, Daniel. Yeah, just a couple of questions actually. Well, that's probably a few actually, but I'll just try to hit on a resident. It's actually a parish councillor has asked me, with the current collecting boxes and bags that aren't covered, does it matter if the recycling is wet? And I said to him no, and then he said he's spoken to a number of councils, which probably not us, I don't know. And he thinks when it's wet, it causes a problem. What could you comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, yeah, we're it's in an ideal world, I think we'd prefer it not be wet, but it's not a problem for us. Veolia are able to deal with it and manage the cardboard, particularly if it's wet. So we don't have an issue if it's left uncovered.
Okay, thank you very much. The other one is on the sort of messaging of this strategy and the consultation. There's obviously quite a few people around focusing on the 3-week proposal of the black bin collection. Is it clear? I haven't done the survey myself yet. Is it clear that if that were done, that the recycling would continue every 2 weeks, if I understand it correctly, and also in the future, we will be able to collect plastic pots at the roadside. So in other words, collecting more stuff. And if that is true, why are we doing the consultation now? Are you confident, I suppose, that the residents realise that it's not just all about collecting the black bin less often, which is obviously sounds like not a great message. The positive being the other aspects, and maybe there's a slight timing issue there, that the big benefit of collecting more stuff isn't coming straight away.
No, yeah, thank you for the comments. When we hope the message is clear in it. We are proposing to collect more items for recycling, but we're going to have to as part of Simple Recycling. So we've hoped we hope we've worded the consultation in a way that suggests that to residents. But I'm happy to take feedback from people who have filled out a survey to see what they think, what their take is on how that reads.
Thanks a lot, Daniel.
Just I think quickly on that point, I think it's really important that residents look at the consultation as a holistic strategy, not just the one gotcha headline topic that the various elements of the media and the community want to see. I think it's really important that it is viewed in its entirety, and it does include timelines on there around moving towards the extra collection potentially of hot tubs and trays, as well as many other things. I think it's really important that this is viewed in the whole and in the round. This is a real step forward in how we look at managing our waste, and I think it really is important to me that residents see that as a holistic strategy rather than just the one element. Waste is so much more than just black bin residual waste. It's many other elements. Really important that we get it. It's a really thorough consultation about it is meaty. It's like 44 questions long, but it's really does try to pull out all of these strands that go into this. So I hope people do take the time to fill it in. I mean, 2,200 responses is fantastic, and that's jumped up a lot since Friday. So really positive and really want to hear from it. So I would absolutely urge members to make sure residents do view it in the light of a whole rather than just one part, one topic. Councillor Abbs was first. Sorry, my fault.
I'm quite happy to defer to Councillor Vickers because she is a member, and I'm just.
I'll come back to you then, Councillor Vickers.
It's okay. I think that's a good point Councillor Carter raised, and it's reinforced by Councillor Gawley. And maybe we've got a job to do in trying to make sure that message is sort of out there, because it's great to see that the recycling is being expanded, and obviously fewer stuff going into the black bin, so it all follows, doesn't it, that you don't need to empty your black bin so much. We're not a big family, so our black bin doesn't get much in it at all. I was just going to the point that Councillor Carter raised about the open bin. They're very flimsy, those bins that collect the paper and the cardboard, and I thought there was a thought to replace them at some stage. They're constantly getting damaged and things blow all over the place. Having an uncovered bin is not the best idea. But the thing I was going to raise was, wondering, hopefully people are buying in to the recycling, and there's sometimes cynicism about what happens to the stuff that, is it all ending up in the same place, or they sort of send it abroad or something. But I was fortunate enough to visit the recycling centre just in Padworth, and that's a really interesting place, actually. It was fascinating finding out what's going on. And when we were there, I know they can't cope with lots of visitors, but we talked about maybe having a video which shows people what happens there. And we've got the screen in the reception. It's a sort of place where you could be putting on something like that while people are waiting. And it's really, really interesting and finding out what happens to your food waste. And, I find it fascinating. And I'm sure certainly, I don't know whether they do school visits, but certainly trying to get that message out there by producing a little video, I think might be useful.
Thank you. And I think just to re-emphasise that point, I'm just doing a quick tally. I think it's 8 waste streams that we collect at the curbside, with a 9th coming in the not so distant future. So I think that's a really important point to emphasise, that it is more than just the black bin residue, and making sure people realise that and hear that, I think, is really important, and for all of the right reasons. And to echo your point around the quality of recycling and where it goes is it's important. For me, it's important we do the right thing with that recycling rather than just saying we're doing a good job. We actually follow it through and make sure it goes to the right places. Cool. I had Councillor Kanda. I believe you've got your hand up online.
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi. So a couple of things. I just on the back of Councillor Carter's points, I think it was, with regards to the headline being the changing the black bin frequency. If you look at the survey, the very top line says changing the black bin waste collections frequency. There's no mention of any of the others. And then it goes on to talking about increasing our recycling options, etc. As you've just mentioned, we're going from 8 to 9. So I think perception-wise, whether we meant it or not, everyone is going to see that and think that this is purely and simply about reducing the amount of times that the black bin's collected. And that is probably going to mean that you're going to get a negative impact. Just a comment from my perspective, because when I read it, that's exactly what I see. And then it does beg the question that all you're going to get is questions about how many is the food going to get collected weekly? Because if you're only doing green recycling every other week and you're doing that every 3 weeks, there's still going to be trucks coming out every week. And then also the recycling, is that going to be every other week, or is that going to be the next thing to move? So if we want to bring people along on a journey for the right reasons, we have to give them the right reasons. And at the moment, I'm not sure the survey gives us that, personally, if I look at it. The other question I've got is, in terms of the comparisons that we've made, the 42% in terms of what could be recycled and 22% of that being food, or the other way around. Was that just taken as a snapshot because we only just started earlier that year to put out the food caddies, and obviously it's going to take a bit of adoption rate time. And then if we, just as a addition to that, we're comparing ourselves to other people, and I think you mentioned Bracknell or Basingstoke, one of the two. Are we comparing like for like? Because there's always a problem with looking at statistics, right? We need to make sure that if we're using statistics as a basis for the example of showing that we can improve things, we need to make sure that those statistics are like for like. So I wonder how many recycling options, for instance, those other ones that are better than us have. And also, are they split? Because if you look at Reading Council, it's one big bin. They put everything in one bin and it gets sorted somewhere else, which in theory may make it easier for people to recycle than having to split everything up into flimsy baskets. Not really a question there, but it was like a whole encompassing aspect that I'm just trying to bring out, which is, if we want to bring people on a journey, we need to make it right. If we're comparing ourselves to people, we need to make sure that the stats are aligned. Otherwise, we'll either fail or we'll be trying to achieve something that is wrong. Thank you, Councillor Kanda. Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you, Councillor Kanda. Yeah, just to clarify, I guess that as part of the proposal to changing the frequencies of collections, we're not proposing to change the frequency of anything else. So food waste would stay weekly, and recycling would stay 2 weekly. So not looking at making any changes to that. In terms of data and who we compare ourselves to, yeah, you're definitely right. We need to be careful with that, but it's tricky sometimes to find someone who's exactly the same as you, because local authorities do lots of different things. Bracknell, we feel, is a good example. Is there also a unitary authority? They have introduced separate food waste weekly collections as well. They may do their recycling slightly differently, but we will and we do speak to as many people as we can to try and find someone who's similar to us, so we can have a good comparison. But it's definitely right. And your first point was about the strategy being to focus on free weekly. I think we wanted to make sure that was kind of clear and obvious to people. That is something we were proposing, and it's not something that we're hiding from. And we want to make sure people are aware of that. But it's definitely right. We need to get the right balance to get the message across, as similar to something that Stuart was saying earlier. It's a holistic approach that we're trying to take.
And just one follow-up question then, with regards to the existing waste contract that we have with Veolia. Is that due for renewal at any point in time? Because obviously if we're going to be reducing truck rolls, then either the contract needs to be amended, and therefore hopefully it saves the council money as well, or we have to, if it's up for renewal shortly, we need to make sure that we get this done in time so that we know what we're asking them for.
Yeah, thank you. The current contract with Veolia ends in 2032. So the current timeline of the strategy is looking to take us to the end of the current contract with Veolia.
So we're not looking to implement these changes till then, or we are going, if it's positively received, we'll do it early, but then how do we rationalise the contract and the money we pay?
We would negotiate that with Veolia, and we're fairly confident we'd be able to do that in contract. So we've made all the changes we've made over the past. What's it, 2008? The changes we've made, we've been able to work well in partnership with Veolia to make those changes. So we're confident we'd be able to if needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kander. Who did I have? Councillor Culver.
Thank you. Interesting questions about the contract, because I can't claim credit for this. It was Councillor Wollaston, I think, at Executive, who asked a question about the impact of moving the black bins to every 3 weeks, and the fact that that would then mean you would have some areas getting both bins emptied 1 week, and then another week you would only have one area having their bins done, and another area wouldn't be getting their bins done at all. So you'd be having to sort of move your staff around, presumably. There'd actually be less work to do on some weeks because of the change in the black bins. I just wondered what impact that would have on the staff. And that isn't to say that I don't agree with changing the black bins. I am still getting a lot of emails from people in my ward about this. You can probably imagine what a lot of them say because they read the Newbury Weekly News. But I think maybe we need to emphasise to the residents that we are the 26th highest producer of waste in the country, and that we do need to do more to do our bit to reduce this. And I'm really pleased to hear how many people are taking part in the consultation. And I just want to put it on record that I think in the long term, we need to think about bringing this in-house. We've looked at a lot of different areas of what the council does. So adult social care, children's social care, should we think about bringing more of this stuff in-house? I realise there are complications with that, not least in terms of staffing things, if you want to do it in-house. But ultimately, if we can save some money in the long term, I think we definitely need to keep that option on the table. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Culver. It's in terms of how it would affect the collection crews. The current crews are, so we have sort of a crew for black bins, a crew for recycling, and a crew for garden waste, and a crew for food waste. So reducing the frequency of the black bin collections would mean we wouldn't need as many crews, possibly, and depending on how the resourcing of that works, it could push more resource towards recycling. But we don't see it being a problem in terms of how it would work. All the vehicles are fully utilised at the moment, and they will sort of continue to be going forward. And it may be somewhere where we can reduce or need to reshuffle the current resource.
Thank you. Excellent. Kofi.
Thank you, Chair. If I may add quickly to the response. Yeah, we're very confident that if decision makers decide to move to 3 weekly general waste collections, we would work with Veolia to implement it using due sensitivity and effectiveness. I happen to live in the Bracknell Forest area, and we've moved to 3 weekly for at least 2 years. And as with most things, it's often preceded by scare stories and petitions because people cannot quite bring themselves to accepting it could work for their households. But soon as it was implemented, all the noise went down, and it's been working fantastically well. And I say I'm a fairly big household, 5 altogether, but we went as far as 5 weeks because we missed one collection and we were fine. So it's something that I'll be very happy to recommend to all our residents. We've moved the dial using so many measures, and this is the next step with having introduced separate food waste collections. Our waste generation is not something we are proud of. And if we really want to take care of the environment and be an efficient waste management authority, this is the next step we should all embark on together, subject to decision makers approving this in due course. Thank you, Chair.
And I will always use the opportunity to get the waste hierarchy into a conversation when it comes to this. And that is around making sure that we look to reduce first, reuse second, and then recycle is almost the last resort before it goes off to any black bin. And I think that's always a key thing to remember is around the reduce, reuse, recycle. I think that comes back to that point about being in the top 26th, out of the 340 odd local authorities across England. That's not a a good place to be, and we do need to look at how we address that, and reducing will be one of those things.
Chair, thank you. Just forgot one point in terms of the recommendation from Councillor Culver to consider bringing the contract in-house. Just to say, we will consider the full range of deliverable options, looking out for value for money for the council's ratepayers, and making sure that whatever solution is adopted is the best practicable option. So bringing it in-house will be one of the short list of options that we will consider. And if that, on a fair analysis, ends up being the best one, it would certainly be on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. If you bear with me just a little on this, I haven't given my feedback into the draft strategy yet by the online, because I want to do more research, and hence Daniel knows I've been asking him questions and so on and so forth. And of course, I used to have this portfolio, so I recognize some of this strategy from a year ago. I think there's something missing, to be honest, and that's the vision. Because usually you have a vision, and then you have your strategy and your tactical bits that come out of the vision. So the vision for me should be to be similar to the rest of the world. It may be sound a bit grand, that, but if I look at Belgium, which is not that dissimilar in terms of how it operates to the UK, they're sitting at a recycling rate of 79%. Okay, so that would be a vision for me that we should be targeting. How do we get into the 70s, towards the 80s? Not how do we move the dial by 4% or 3% or 2%, because this strategy at the moment, because we say we're already 54%, is only talking about taking that up to 60%. Well, in 2012, according to the strategy, we were above 50% already. So actually, in 10 years, we've barely gone anywhere. So why? So that's the framework, right? So if I look then at the best players in the world and the strategies they're deploying, they have some of what we do, in that they have streams that they say, yes, you would like you to separate those streams, but they generally be a dry stream, a wet stream, or a composting stream, and then everything else that we can't actually deal with at all. So, and what they deal with is that, okay, and we're going to, because we are living in a dense society, we're also trying to make it easy for people to actually deal with. So put all of your dry in that bin, all of your composting food in that bin, and by the way, anything else that's not on our list, put in that bin over there. And essentially you collect that, and what you use is MRFs to basically separate it out. The quality of those MRFs, as we know, and I'm sure Daniel has seen this, but he must have been to the conferences, is improving at a rate of knots. With the advent of AI, with the infrared, with all sorts of IR, with all the different sensors that are now fitting to those MRFs, the load, the quality of the separation is on an upward trend. When I was reading online about what's happening where, the conferences are saying, yes, we've got these challenges still, but we're going to improve there. So come back to the vision. I think the mid-administration ideally should have a vision on top of the strategy saying, we're aiming for this now, but actually our vision is to aim for this even higher point sum. Because you're right, in what was it? It's about 9 years to go, isn't it? 7 years to go. And the strategy is aligned for that 7 years. However, we will start renegotiating that Veolia contract in 3 years' time, 2 years' time? It's really not far. Our waste trucks have just been renewed, or some of them have just been renewed. They're going to be changed in 7 years' time. So this is our opportunity to not just go, I'll have a little bit more of the same, but really to go, I want a vision of how we're going to do it. And I don't mean just throw money at it. Any of you know me, I don't like throwing money at stuff. I want a clever solution. So my gut tells me that we are going to achieve maybe 60% in the time frame. And the reason we won't do more, because we're trying to press people to change, and they haven't got the room for all the separation that we're asking them to do already, and therefore they won't do it. So we're pushing against that ceiling of what we can do with our existing methodology. And what I didn't know, although I saw MRFs and things mentioned on page 21 and 22 of the draft strategy, what I didn't see was due consideration of all the advantages that might come along with that. It mentions reduced numbers of crew necessary because we might do less journeys, but actually we might be able to push through this barrier of what we're the ceiling, if you like, of what we can recycle. So I guess my question to officers is, what have I said that's wrong? Because there's bound to be something I've said that was wrong there. And what would your suggestion be to go further than 60? Because you mentioned 11% change, or someone mentioned 11% change at some point. It wasn't quite clear if that was a reduction in the overall waste or the increase in their recycling rates. But if it's an 11% increase in their recycling rates and we're already at 54, why is our target 60? Surely it'd be 65. Is that enough? Was that too much in one go? I'm sorry. Apologies.
Go for it, Kofi.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, Councillor Abbs, that perhaps we're missing two words in how we presented it. We're aspiring to at least 60%. So it's not a case where we hit 60 and we declare mission accomplished. So we are hopeful and pushing to go as much upwards as we can, given the constraints and the resources available to us. And thank you for mentioning other best practice countries and councils across the world. We want to be where they are, but as you can appreciate, it comes with a lot of funding. So for example, even in the UK, if you take Wales and Scotland, they've deployed huge millions of funding to the authorities to manage their waste in particular ways. And being slightly controversial, many of those have monthly general waste collections, which I don't think we are.
The schedule is, I'm relaxed about the schedule insofar as long as we manage the schedule and what's being collected, why would there be an issue? We're not, I don't think anybody has ever said there's a negative involved here. It's just a reorientation of things. So I don't think the schedule is something we should get bogged down in. It's the methodology, the vision behind which we are going to push on through the 60 to the 70 to the 80.
Yes.
Because that's actually what the world needs. It isn't stuck back there in the 60s. So.
Yes. And no gainsaying, Councillor Gawley has said has really ambitious aspirations. So, for example, high aspiration to move to more carbon, low carbon fuel types, which Councillor Gawley is pushing. So we will shortly be starting hydro-treated vegetable oil in some of our fleets with a view to expanding it as funding availability allows. So it is a very...
And you should mention that, Kofi, but when I was at the portfolio, we talked with Veolia and they were going to lend us a couple of electric vehicles to examine the routes and then go, okay, we could do a trial on that because the low carbon fuel is one way, but certainly some of the routes we're talking about should be usable electric, and they had vehicles they could lend us. Did nothing ever happen with that, or?
It is in the pipeline.
Oh, it is.
I think that that conversation centered around on-site handling equipment like the JCB types.
No, it wasn't. It was the actual vehicles and trying to identify certain routes that could be serviced by electric vehicles rather than diesel fuel vehicles. But I think I've got the old emails if you want me to dig them out. But anyway, let's not get bogged down in that. From my perspective, what we're looking at is a change. We should be looking at is a change in philosophy. But and I'm really looking for a surety that the officers have examined that other approach to what we're doing, because I'm really worried myself about my house and where I live and the people I know, because I've got the space for ever more containers to separate into, but there's so many people, and we're going to be at Eagle Quarter this Thursday talking about building hundreds of more flats, and that's all we've been building in Newbury for ages. Flat, 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 flat. They don't have the space. There's all sorts of stories about how people are trying to manage recycling by separation at source when they haven't got the space to do it.
Probably shouldn't talk about a planning act that's coming up this week. So let's move
decision yet.
Move swiftly over to Daniel
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points just to answer Councillor Abbs. Yeah, the 11% was the increase that Bracknell Council saw when they introduced free weekly collections at the same time as introducing weekly food waste collections. So that's why they've had the bigger rise there. We've had 5% increase from the food waste, and then hopefully the next sort of 5 will come from free weekly if we decide to go that way. And in terms of the electric vehicles, collection vehicles, it's something we're still discussing with Veolia to get some vehicles in. They've held some initial discussions with Dennis Eagle and Mercedes, and we'll see if we can get one in soon to start working and seeing how effective that can be in a district that's quite large and rural, such as ours.
I appreciate that, Daniel, but I'm glad you found a charging point for them. So.
And I think it's important to note that the strategy also talks about looking at our smaller vehicle fleet as well and utilising that in the more urban areas where it is a bit easier to access charging, etc. I think we're overlooking another metric here. Sorry, just I'll take chair's privilege. That actually is that kiloage per household. And actually, if we start to reduce the kiloage per household, that will also drive up the recycling rate because we're reducing that waste initially, and that's the key element. I think those two metrics shouldn't be reviewed in isolation. They need to be viewed together collectively, because it'd be really interesting to know, and I don't know what Belgium's kiloage per household is compared to ours. So of that 79%, is it a lot less per kiloage, if you know what I mean, and they're recycling more because they're not buying as much in the first place? So I would be keen to understand what that is in context, because I think Councillor Kanda highlighted this earlier on. You know, with statistics, you've got to have the context around the statistic for it to make sense.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd use Belgium rather than North Korea.
And if North Korea is
more accessible,
somewhere to look at possibly, but it'd be interesting to know out of interest. But yes, it's definitely some good thoughts, and thank you for that. And I think there is definitely vision there, and it's vision in many, many places and many, many facets. Because like I said, it's not just about the recycling percentage, it's about all that other stuff that goes around that service. So thank you for your comments. And I think I would use this as an opportunity to remind everybody to take the opportunity to fill the consultation in as well. It is such an important part of the services we provide across West Berkshire. You know, it's one of the only services alongside the roads probably, which I'm also lucky enough to have, that every resident in West Berkshire utilises. So it really is important that we get that feedback. You know, 2,200 is actually out of 166,000 residents. So there's still a lot more people out there to read through that strategy and take a look. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, sorry, just to come back on, I appreciate Councillor Kanda's points and Councillor Abbs there. I'm sorry to just talk about the strategy thing. I'm a bit of a strategy nerd, so it's probably going to annoy the public as well, because I did an MBA, which some people call a management by, and I won't say the third word. But to my mind, actually, vision, strategy, tactics, as Adrian says, that's correct. But to me, it's the what and the how. If I look at our strategy, probably for me, it's the increasing recycling, halving waste, reducing carbon, making the place pleasant, and probably making the whole process as easy as we can for all the different people in the district, which is roughly what it says. I think the how is more about the greater recycling collection types, cameras on fly tipping areas, presumably, and helping residents with small properties and communal bin stores, which I know is definitely a difficult area, and the education, and then the so-called eat your own dog food thing, which is where the council embraces the strategy, or the French call it drink your own champagne. So in other words, the district council itself is making sure that we're hitting the recycling targets. So that's how I see it. I don't think there's going to be any more containers, from what I understand, because I think we've got all the containers we need. Whether we change them is another matter, but I don't think people aren't going to be asked to have more. No. But I think the practical issue probably is that the smaller households, the flats, the communal bin stores seems to be the sort of difficult one. Well, I'm as you say, I'm quite lucky. Our main panic is we go on holiday, whether the kids are going to put the green stuff out. That's our big panic. It's not, it's a different problem to people in a flat. Just anecdotally, sorry, my favourite Internet of Things example as it relates to recycling is in Spain, they have smart bins and they work out when the bin needs emptying. So the lorry goes all over the place. When you hear that the first time, you think that sounds a bit daft, but they do, and it seems to work. One question I was asked, which is probably a rhetorical one, is what are we doing with manufacturers to cut out the plastic in the first place? And I don't know whether it's just you get another one of these, we write a stiff letter to the manufacturers, or whether there's more there. That I'm not saying you can answer that, but I just say that because it was put to me as part of this.
And it is actually a really key piece of legislation that's on its way, isn't it? The extended producer responsibility. Getting my acronyms right today, EPR. Daniel, I don't know if you want to just cover that in a bit more detail and do it more justice than I just did.
Yeah, almost got it right. PEPR, packaging extended producer responsibility. So yeah, it's the government putting, I guess, the onus on the collection and disposal of packaging that manufacturers produce, putting that kind of charge and cost onto the producers, and redistributing that across collection authorities and disposal authorities. So that's coming next year. It's coming. So we'll hopefully have some more detail when the government release that as to how if we're going to benefit from that as an authority. So in terms of lobbying, I mean, we don't we take part, and we're part of lots of different industrial or local council organisations who do lobby government. So there's LARC, NALDO, and other industry bodies who we contribute to, and yeah, they do a lot of lobbying to government to do what we need and what we think is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Daniel. I've got a question from Susan, and then I'll bring you in, Adrian.
Thank you, Councillor Gawley. Daniel, is there anything that the council can learn from other authorities about how to actually inspire and encourage residents to do recycling? I've been using communal recycling bins for the last 11 years, and never once have I seen one bin with the correctly filled with the right things, and that includes the black bins as well, as they're always full of things that can be recycled. And I get the impression that people don't take the trouble to recycle even when they go out, and it's quite easy to do it because all the bins are in front of them. It all goes in the wrong bin.
Yeah, I mean, we're always talking to other authorities to see what we can learn and what we can pick up. So when we rolled out our food waste service, we spoke to other local authorities who had done the same thing and learned from them as to how they did it and how they communicated it and how well it went. But it's a challenge for all of us, I think, across the country to get everybody interested and invested in recycling and recycling the right way. And hopefully with simpler recycling, everybody will be clear on what can be recycled across the country, which I think is a good thing. But always open to not just from other councils, but from anybody else out there, and ideas on how we can communicate our services better to everyone.
Thank you, Daniel. Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, Susan, I think you've made a very valid point. My vision, my philosophy is always to solve the problem for the people rather than rely on the people to be retrained to solve and for them to solve the problem. Because whenever we talk about societal change, we're talking about something that's extremely hard to do. So even if you've got two equally costed solutions, you'd go for the one that doesn't require people to change what they're doing already, because that would succeed far faster. But it's gone off this point slightly there. There was a couple of things I wanted to ask of the officers. First of all, in the strategy, it talks about the government change, which is going to allow for the commingling thing to be more prevalent. And if we look where we are today in terms of some of the sources I was looking at anyway, letsrecycle.com, and it was talking about where a report from February 2024, so quite recent, and talked about what the various schemes look like. We're in the other bracket in that we seem to have streams of various types and then curbside as well. So hence we've got so many different containers. That puts us down in the want less than 10% of what the rest of the 340 are doing, according to Let's Recycle. So if that's not right, then please correct me. By being an edge case, for whatever reason, generally means we're then asking our suppliers to do things that not the majority aren't. So if that's the case, we're an edge case and Veolia are doing 90% of the rest in a different way, that means our cost base is potentially higher because we're the minority of what's happening, not the majority. And just have you got any comments about that legislation piece, the commingling, how that's going to allow councils that are already commingling to stay that way and then use MRFs to recycle, and, you know, why we went this route of, you know, that we did to be the edge case.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the question, Councillor Hobbs. I believe our approach has always been to balance good quality with good quantity of recycling.
Mm-hmm.
So it is true that when you commingle or dry recycling in one bin is easier for residents, but equally true to say it diminishes the quality because you get high levels of contamination. And then it means when you need to place the material on the market, it is less attractive to the market. That's what sometimes feeds into the reputational problem of materials being shipped to the Far East, ending up in the oceans. Because what we need to get to the public is, it's not just a matter of putting it into your bin and we say the recycling is done. You need to follow it through back to back. And that's where we take pride from, that everything we collect will be effectively recycled. And finally, to say that since the commingling option was made acceptable to those who chose that route, I've seen more examples of councils who previously were commingling deciding to go to a higher source separated collection than the reverse. I've not seen any one authority that did separate collection like we do, choosing to go to commingling. And that's purely driven by the quality and the market angles. So we've got a good solution. We need to be proud and stand behind it. And if it's a matter of using communications to continue to work on residents to get them to recycle more, we will keep going on that journey. But there's no appetite within the council or with Veolia to change course and mix it all.
And I get that, but we have to remember that the strategy we've been following was started over 20 years ago, and we haven't had a strategy for a year or so, and now we're talking about a relatively short strategy for the next 7 years. Whereas if I just think about the progress in MRFs over that time, because nobody's talking about putting everything in one bin and that's it. I'm definitely not suggesting that. But how many bins you have and what you put in what bin could be part of a different strategy to suit the development in the MRFs, which have moved on immensely. And that progress in those areas doesn't lead to the problem of the drop in quality, or nowhere near like it used to. So there's a point in time where everything you said, I would 100% agree with you, Kofi. And then there's a point at which someone develops something and you think, actually, we don't quite need to do it that way anymore. And that's all I'm saying. Make sure we are looking at these developments and make sure we're testing out the cost points of those elements. Otherwise, we'll have a strategy that's short-lived.
And again, I think it's that holistic overview of the strategy. It's not looking at one strand in isolation. And there's probably one challenge that I would make to your philosophy, and I think that is around solving the problem with people as opposed to for them. This is not something that we can solve for everybody. This is absolutely not. And that goes for the wider climate topic. It's not something we can solve for people. It's something we can solve with people. And I think that's the key strand for me, is actually I want this council to be the #1 recycling authority, but I want them to do it in the right way, in the right way where the recycling goes to the right places and is dealt with in the correct manner. And I think that's one metric that is missing from the government, is actually the quality of people's recycling. You know, those recycling local authorities at the top tier, actually how much of that percentage gets written off because it's poor quality? How much of that 65% ends up going somewhere else in the world outside of the UK because it's poor quality. For me, that's the big difference that we're trying to do, is doing it the right way to maintain that quality so it stays local. We can use it in that circular economy, but really making sure we do our bit responsibly. And I think that for me is the big difference. And that does involve bringing people with us and doing it with people, because we can't solve this solution. for people. We have to do it
Chairman,
with
yeah,
people.
I mean, everything I've suggested would still require people to separate. I've never said, but just not quite to the level we're doing. So they still need to come along on the journey. We can't do that bit for them. So it's not one bin. It's you have to separate. It's quality. It's the economy of scale, making sure we're matching what everybody else is doing. A holistic view, as you've said. So I'm totally in agreement with that.
Good, thank you. Kelvin, you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you.
Yeah, just on the basis that nothing is new. I just found these on my phone. These are photos of the education project that was set up at Padworth when it was first built. If anybody remembers that. So basically it was designed for children to come and visit from schools to see exactly where and what happens to your recycling. So your recycling starts at home, and took them through the whole process. There's some very nice and interesting displays that were built and put together, and we happen to have them because 5 years ago, when it was decided that the centre couldn't be used, I think I stand corrected, because school children couldn't actually visit the site for health and safety reasons. We stored them. We still have them 5 years later. I think, Danny, we spoke about this not long back. And basically, this kit, which cost, I would guess, some thousands at least to put together, could still be reused. And it literally does show people where the recycling goes. And I wouldn't be amiss, I think, if I said that this cost at least 20 grand, if not more. And essentially, it was designed so that children would come along, they would have a little passport, and they would go through the process. There's all the letter stamps, so they stamp it, that they now understand where the plastic goes and everything else. There's a computer program with it. There's a centrifuge in it to show how you separate out different fractions. This was all put in. It was never used. I think it was used once by one school, but the kit still exists. So if somebody can we haven't got the space to do it, but we've stored it for 5 years.
We don't need the council chamber. That's fine.
About the size of this council, about half the size of here. It can all be reconfigured. I'm just saying that this is not a question that hasn't been revisited in the past, and an answer was brought up, but the answer wasn't listened to. So what I would say is that, at least this should be have a look at.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a key strand of the strategies around that education piece.
And I need the space for our Christmas toy appeal, so I need it gone.
So I will leave that in Daniel and Kofi's hands to pick up, and we can have a chat about it. Because Daniel, do you want to come in there quickly?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up Calvin. Yeah, it was taken out say before my time, but I believe it was more to the fact that schools just weren't visiting. Trying to organise a minibus of kids to Padworth was the thing, rather than health and safety grounds. But yeah, I know you've been speaking to officers to see if we can rehouse it. I think we almost had a taker who actually pulled out, unfortunately. In the end,
we delivered it, and then when we got it there, they says they didn't want it. But I would say that the entrance here to the Market Street offices is just about the right size along the ball on one side. Would be perfect.
I will. I'll add that to the action list for Kofi to pick up. No, thank you, Calvin. No, be interesting to see what we could use it for and how we could home it somewhere sensible. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Cool, excellent. I don't think we've got any more questions online and nothing on the room, but thank you for the discussion. It is a really important topic. And like I said, it's one of the few services that everybody across West Berks uses. So, the more feedback and input we have into the draft, then the better. Cool, excellent. So the next item is item 7, but Dr. Pat Watson is not here. So we've agreed with Dr. Watson that we will move that to the November's agenda and have a discussion when she can make it. So that takes me on to item 8, which is the date of the next meeting, which is the 25th of November. So 1 month out from Christmas, just to solidify the fact that we are towards the pointy end of the year already. So that's the 25th of November. And then that takes me to item 9, which is any other business. 25th of November. Any other business, Councillor Abbs?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just wondering when we'll next get an update on the energy-related projects that are undergoing to do with the waterways and so on. I haven't heard anything for a while, and don't know if that's coming back.
Hold that thought. With regards to the other ones, we can perhaps add that to the agenda for the next EAG to give a bit of an update on the other activities, because we're coming very close on a lot of them now. So excellent, thank you for that. And that leads me to the last bit, because we've got some part 2 activity, which is the exclusion of the press and public. Before I do that, thank you to our presenters this evening, and thank you very much for coming in and for the discussion as well. It's always valuable to have people come in, present, talk to us about what's going on around their patch and across the piece, and also add value to the conversation and topics that follow. So thank you, Susan and Kelvin, this evening, and thank you, Daniel, as well. So that leads me to just ask for the press and public to be excluded and the end of the live stream, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.